I'll be reading from this book today. The book is called Old Yeller by Fred Gibson. I had this book for a while and I'm thinking my kids read it, but I have not read it myself. I'm also aware of the movie Old Yeller, but I have not watched it before. So I'll be reading from this book, the first chapter, and then I'll stop when I have something that I connect to or when I wonder about something. So let's read. We called him Old Yeller. The name had a sort of double meaning. Now, I know that Old Yeller is the dog, and he's called Old Yeller because of his kind of bark, but I'm not aware of any other meaning, so let's read and see. One part meant that his short hair was a dingy yellow, a color that we called yeller in those days. Okay, so now yeller means yellow. This is new to me. I didn't know this before, but the author here said in those days, so that might be a word that was used before. That's what I'm expecting, and that's what I'm thinking. Let's see what's the other meaning. The other meant that when he opened his head, the sound he let out came closer to being a yell than a bark. So this is the meaning I'm aware of before even reading the book, from what I watched about, the trailer of the movie and stuff like that. Okay, so the thing that really attracted my attention here is when the author said when he opened his head. Now I really can't imagine a dog opening his head. I would say why wouldn't the author say when he opened his mouth? So I wonder why. I'm not sure. Let's keep reading. I remember like yesterday how he strayed in out of nowhere to our log cabin on Birdsong Creek. Now, I don't really know where Birdsong Creek is, so we have to keep reading to know. He made me so mad at first that I wanted to kill him. Then later, when I had to kill him, it was like having to shoot some of my own folks. That's how much I'd come to think of the big yellow dog. Okay, now you see, I have a connection to this because I think sometimes we tend to have a strong reaction in the beginning, and then all of a sudden we see a different perspective and we change our mind. And here the little boy seemed to have the same experience with Old Yeller, hating him in the beginning and all of a sudden starting to develop this affection for the dog. He came in the late 1860s, the best I remember. So the time period now, we know the time period. We still don't know where the story takes place. But we know the time period, which is the 1860s, which reminds me of the Civil War. But we still don't know where is it taking place. Anyhow, it was the year that Papa and a bunch of other Salt Lake settlers formed the pool herd of their little separate bunches of steers and trailed them to the new cattle market at Abilene, Kansas. So now they're taking their cattle to the Kansas market, but we still don't know where are they going from, So this is definitely the story taking place in Kansas and maybe, farther states. So we'll see. Let's keep reading. This was to get cash money, a thing that all Texans were short of in those years right after the Civil War. So definitely, the story takes place in Texas. And definitely, 1860s or the late 1860s is right after the Civil War. We lived then in a new country and a good one. So now we remember that Texas was for some time a country by its own, and then it was annexed to the United States in 1845. So this is, short after that. So definitely was a new, that's why it calls a new country. And I'm thinking, that's what it refers to, a new country. And if we think about the whole West at that time period, we think that it was a whole thing. The whole West was kind of a new country. It was called the wild frontier. So definitely at that time period, it was not well populated. And even here, it mentioned the settlers. So definitely was not very populated. And I also remember at the 1860s, people start, the westward expansion started. This is before even we had the transcontinental train railroads, so definitely at that time period, the whole West was a kind of the new frontier. Okay, let's finish reading. As Papa pointed out, the day the man talked over making the drive, we had plenty of grass, wood, and water. We had wild game for the killing, fertile ground for growing bread corn, and the Indians had been put onto reservations with the return of U.S. soldiers to the Texas forts. So here also it mentions the Indians, and at that time period, Indians were driven out of their farmland and out of their hunting land to live in the reservation. So this is the time period where westward expansion was happening. People were traveling to the west, and Indians were driven out of their land. And here I expect also later on to have the book talk about a little bit, the relationship between the Indians and the settlers, and which was in some instances was not really a friendly relationship. So that is for now. Thank you for watching.